Welcome to the motherfucking relay where we're covering today's top boxing news.
I'll tell you, you can set your watch by Deontay Wilder's delusions of grandeur. Not but one day after the Tyson Fury fight, Deontay Wilder, per Michael Benson's tweets, Deontay Wilder was quoted as saying in reaction to Tyson Fury's fight against Otto Wallin, he was quoted as saying, anyone that saw this fight will understand, recognize, he's not the same fighter. But this is what I do to them. I end careers. He's not the same fighter at all. I took something. He's done, and I can't wait. And this quote is verbatim per Barbershop Conversations via Michael Benson's tweet. So what do I think of this? I told you, this is Deontay Wilder being a glory hog and attempting to take credit for what somebody else did. Not dissimilar from his sentiments to the Joshua Ruiz fight, to where he was trying to say that Joshua was avoiding the fight because he lost to Andy Ruiz. Hey, do you remember that you're the one who turned down $100 million for less money? Do you remember that? And that is not dissimilar from this. That you're looking at how Tyson Fury performed against Otto Wallin, a guy who you have almost nothing in common with, and you're telling yourself that what, that Tyson Fury stands today as a broken man, that you took something from him in your fight with him, yet he fought Tom Schwartz after that. Did you forget that fight? He fought Tom Schwartz. And there was no indication that Tyson Fury was a broken man or that anything was wrong with him. You certainly weren't releasing quotes like this after that fight, yet let somebody go in there, let somebody show their worth, show their quality, show their heart, show their desire to win, and in comes Deontay Wilder trying to make it about him, when in reality it has nothing to do with him, and all it really has to do with are the styles of the two fighters in the ring, what most every fight boils down to.
Outside of a few intangibles.
Ladies and gentlemen, if the fight worked out the way that it did, I'll reiterate, it's got more to do with Otto Wallin's implementation. Joey Gamache, Otto Wallin, their game plan, how they chose to approach this fight. They know they're not going to be able to win a boxing match, a finesse fighting kind of fight against the likes of a Tyson Fury. For Christ's sakes, that's what he wants you to do. He knows that's his area of expertise. Thus, you can't approach him that way. You've got to apply the pressure. And if the fight worked out the way that it did, that would be the why. That would be the reason. You know, Deontay Wilder, he's really, you know, on one end of it, he's sliding Otto Wallin, stealing that guy's thunder, trying to take credit for what he put forth yesterday and making it all about him, but he wasn't saying that after the Tom Schwartz fight, so where you coming up with this bullshit? And let me make this clear. I'm not attempting to make excuses for Tyson Fury's performance. I'm not attempting to pardon him for having to go to hell and back with Otto Wallin. No, sir. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around how a guy who's unheralded, who's never been tested by a fighter this caliber at this level, can go out there and push Tyson Fury to the brink. That's what I'm doing, breaking down the fight mechanics. But at no point in the juncture am I attempting to make excuses for Tyson Fury. I saw very interesting questions posed after the fight, that if it were Deontay Wilder that had this kind of a performance against an unheralded guy like a Wallin, would people be saying the same things they're saying about Tyson Fury? And the funniest thing about those kinds of questions is Wilder has been pushed to the brink by some unheralded guys. Unheralded guys like Eric Molina, who managed to stagger Deontay Wilder when he walked right into a left hook. Unheralded guys like Johan Duapis, who managed to puff Wilder's eye all up. He was, battered by that guy. Now, Wilder's fans don't see these things. They don't see it that way. They're just looking for any avenue to endorse his bullshit. But rest assured, that's what it is. It's bullshit. There is a reason that Tyson Fury was able to pick himself up from that big knockdown late in the Deontay Wilder fight. There's a reason that he had enough left in the tank, enough in his energy reserves, to not only pick himself up, but fight back to the very end. There's a reason. And there's a reason that in this fight with Otto Wallin, his energy reserves were being pushed to their limits. You see, Otto Wallin's attack was a sustained attack, and I've explained that already. But let's look at Wilder. You know, if Wilder's got any kind of a base style, because we all know that Wilder's fundamentals are shit, they really are. But at the end of the day, you can liken his style to that of a boxer-puncher with an inclination for counterpunching. That's how you can explain those big knockouts. He hits guys with shots that they don't see coming, like the one he hit Spilka with, like the one he hit Fury with. He hits all these guys with shots that they don't quite see coming, like when Brazil walked into that big right hand. He didn't see it coming, didn't brace himself, so he got the full brunt of the impact. So if Wilder's anything, he's a boxer-puncher with an inclination for counter-punching. He's got his limitations. We all know what they are. But if you were going to liken what he goes out there and does to anything, that would be it. Now, what's the pitfall of that when you're facing a pure boxer? What's the pitfall of being that kind of a fighter? Well, Wilder's going out there and looking for an opportunity to either walk a guy into a punch or set it up. And against a pure boxer who's so defensive, he's not going to give you very many openings to do that. It's increasingly difficult. So it doesn't sap Tyson Fury's energy reserves in all the ways that Otto Wallin might sap his energy reserves, by constantly pushing the pace, applying the pressure, forcing Tyson Fury into exchanges, or to stay on the move. One way or another, the expenditure of energy is evident. It's a different situation. It's a different kind of fight. I mean, you're telling yourself that because you knocked Tyson Fury down,
not out,
in your fight, knocked him down, not out, because he clearly got up and we all saw it. Your fans have been making excuses about the shit ever since, but you know, that just ain't reality. Reality is, yeah, you knocked him down. It was a hard knockdown, but he got up. However, is that the first time Tyson Fury's been put on his ass? No, Steve Cunningham and Nevin Pajic already put Tyson Fury on his ass before Deontay Wilder ever threw a punch at the guy. That's the first fact. The second fact is, if he stood here today as a broken man, it didn't show up in the Tom Schwartz fight, so what the fuck's that got to do with the Otto Wallin fight? Not a goddamn fucking thing. If the fight worked out the way that it did, it's because of the element of surprise. Joey Gamache, Otto Wallin, they chose to put the pressure on Tyson Fury because they knew they couldn't win on the cards, so they had to rough him up. I mean, we saw that when he thumbed Tyson Fury right in that gash over his fucking eye, okay? They knew what they were doing out there. They knew what kind of implementation to put to good use, and what kind of odds, what kind of improvement in their odds it might give them. So overall, this is just another chapter of Wilder being full of shit, being a glory hog, and trying to steal someone else's thunder. And moving forward, you know, if this fight has any bearing on the Deontay Wilder rematch, which is supposedly going down next year in February, you know, I just wonder if the cut will be all healed up by that time to where it doesn't split open from any little nothing punch that touches it. You know, I wonder about that. I wonder that, you know, will Tyson Fury need more time? Because, you know, this thing did go the distance. But as far as Tyson Fury's headspace, which is very important ahead of any fight, this fight could serve as a reminder to Tyson Fury that he's got to stay sharp. This is the heavyweight division. You know, had this fight just been a picnic, you know, a walk in the park, a situation to where Tyson Fury's playing with the guy, he might approach the Wilder fight with a false sense of security, a false sense of confidence that, you know what, you can't take your eyes off the ball, you can't be asleep at the wheel at any point in this division, at any point in the sport of boxing, really. And this fight, Otto Wallin pushing the envelope on Tyson Fury, it reminds him, moving forward, that you've got to be at your very best, you know? You can't take any of these guys lightly, much less Deontay Wilder. So it keeps him that more astute, that much more sharp, or it could.
Yeah, it could.
But, you know, as far as all the Wilder stuff, yeah, that's a lot of bullshit.
I'm a man. You're a man. I always respect what you do. You need Matchroom camera. Still got love for you.
I still got love for you.
I think you're a great businessman. But listen, man, I still want to come home. Listen, I mean, no, life stuff happens, man. And we're human beings, and we gotta grow up. We gotta, you know, just do better. You know, be a better person. And taking the wrong information, doing something that wasn't needed to be done, or going the wrong direction, and happens in life. I came from nothing, and sometimes you make decisions that cost you, and it cost me a lot of money and cost me opportunity. But I feel like the position and everything that happened in my life at this point is for a reason, you know. And the main thing is being better, understanding and learning from my mistakes. I'm not gonna sit here and bash Eddie. I know Eddie was mad and things happen. I mean, we're all human beings and we all make mistakes. You know what I mean? So, listen, on to bigger and better things. We'll figure out what's next.
That is Jarrell Miller, who since testing positive
for several performance-enhancing drugs, costing himself a multi-million-dollar opportunity, has seen the error of his ways, shaved one of his eyebrows off, and is now publicly apologizing to Eddie Hearn. But not only publicly apologizing, but publicly advocating to be back in the good graces of Matchroom, back in the good graces of Eddie Hearn. What do I think about that? Well, let's be honest, people. This is the sport of boxing. It's got a revolving door policy on ped users, and that's not exclusive to Jarrell Miller. Far from it. I mean, you know, Alexander Povetkin,
2 times.
Luis Ortiz,
2 times.
Louis Neri, Lucas Brown, Lamont Peterson, Lucien Butte. You know, I mean, you name them. There are any variety of guys who they got popped for something and they ended up right back in the sport. They didn't get a lifetime ban. So why would Jarrell Miller? At the end of the day, what I'm trying to communicate is this guy was always going to come back. And he was always going to end up somewhere.
Just the truth.
So in that way, it's not that I'm giving offenders or repeat offenders a pardon to find their way back into the sport. You know, it's not moral ambiguity. It's just that's the way it is. That's what's going on. That's what's been going on. And for all accounts, that's what's going to keep going on. Jarrell Miller coming back, that's really not the story. And what the real story is him trying to go back to Matchroom, him trying to go back to Eddie Hearn, at a time where the rumor mill, at least one thread that it's been spinning, is that Jarrell Miller might go over there to Top Rank. Yet here we see he's publicly advocating to quote-unquote come home back to Matchroom.
Why is that?
I'll tell you why. If we're seeing this now, at a time where there are rumors spinning that Jarrell Miller might end up at Top Rank, if we're seeing this right now, that he's trying to get back into Matchroom's good graces, it's likely because Jarrell Miller has weighed his options and he feels that he stands to make more money and has better options if he's on the Matchroom DAZN side of the street as opposed to the Top Rank ESPN side of the street. That's one way that you can explain it. I mean, it's not like he wouldn't have options if he went over there to ESPN. There's plenty of guys for him to fight over there. But from where Jarrell Miller is sitting, if he's going back to Eddie Hearn, if he's trying to do this publicly, it's likely because Jarrell Miller feels that that's the more lucrative option, that he stands to make more money if he goes back to Matchroom, if he goes back to DAZN. Because over there at DAZN, you know, there are a lot of possibilities. A potential pay-per-view with the winner of Chisora versus Parker, you know, over there in the UK. They could build that as a pay-per-view if Chisora wins that fight. Those are the kinds of options that Matchroom provides to a guy like Jarrell Miller. Just as well, Dillian White's on that side of the street, and that's yet another pay-per-view possibility, yet another avenue to participate in a decent-sized fight for decent-sized money. There's also the winner of Usyk versus Spong, and lest we forget, there is Anthony Joshua, that if he makes his way past Andy Ruiz, you know, Jarrell Miller, he's on the table, and Anthony Joshua did say that he would like to fight him anyway. So these are the kind of lucrative options that he's got on the Matchroom side of things that he might not have on the Top Rank side of things. I mean, Top Rank does have Pulev, they do have Agit Kabayel, they do have Tyson Fury. But maybe to Jarrell Miller, those fights, they're really not big money fights, and he doesn't see those as worthwhile uses of his time. Could be that way. So now that we see what Jarrell Miller's trying to do, how he would have it if he could have it his way. Now that we see that he's trying to get back in Eddie Hearn and Matchroom's good graces, the question then becomes, should Eddie Hearn take him back, and is this a legitimate possibility? And in all likelihood, I dare say yes. I could very much see Eddie Hearn going into a relationship, going into a business relationship yet again with Jarrell Miller.
Why?
In spite of the moral ambiguities
Associated with
such a situation. You see, look, one way or another, Jarrell Miller's going to end up somewhere. He is. He's going to end up somewhere, whether it's Top Rank or Matchroom or PBC. He's going to come back. He's going to come back. It's an eventuality, okay? It's just a reality that people have to deal with. So this guy coming back, right? In this competitive market, at a time where you got a lot of different outfits buying up as much talent as they can
to compete
so that they can keep up with the Joneses. In this kind of a market, in this kind of an environment, it behooves every outfit, every promotional outfit, to snag up as much talent as they can so that they can continue to shell out as much content as they can. And say what you want about Jarrell Miller. I'm not telling you to like him. I'm just saying he's got a polarizing personality. And that kind of a personality, that kind of controversial stuff, you know, it helps to sell fights. I mean, you tell me, don't you think that a fight between, I don't know, here's one example. Don't you think that a fight between Jarrell Miller and Dillian White in the UK pay-per-view market. Don't you think that a fight like that in that market would do good business? Don't you think that a fight between two rough and tough guys like Jarrell Miller and Derek Chisora, don't you think a fight like that would do good in the UK pay-per-view market? I think so. And these are the kinds of possibilities that are afforded to just such an outfit
Like Matchroom.
if they let him back into their good graces. So in all likelihood, it's a possibility. I mean, it really is that Eddie Hearn goes back into the Jarrell Miller business. Yeah, it's a possibility. As morally ambiguous as that might seem to me and you, business is business. And a guy like Jarrell Miller, yeah, he's got possibilities that he could be good for business. And before you go getting on your moral high horse attempting to levy criticism towards Eddie Hearn for giving this guy a second chance, hey, need I remind you, what side of the street is Luis Neri on? The PBC side of the street. And didn't he get popped for a banned substance? The same applies to Luis Ortiz. The same applied to Lamont Peterson before he retired. These are all guys that got popped for something. So if you're going to criticize Eddie Hearn for giving Jarrell Miller a second chance, it's only right that you criticize Al Heyman and the PBC for giving those guys a second chance. Look, there's enough ped users to go around in the sport of boxing. There really are. I mean,
They're all.
especially these days. The thing is that this is a very competitive market, you understand. This is a market to where you got a lot of guys trying to appeal to boxing fans by putting out the best and brightest talent that they can. You know, they've all got to be on their P's and Q's, and it's for this reason that you see so many outfits buying up all the real estate in terms of talent so that they can continue to shell out intriguing and entertaining cards. And in that realm, the realm of business and what's good for it, well, it's better for Matchroom to have a Jarrell Miller on their side of the street, in spite of his sketchy history, in spite of his past. It is better for them to have a Jarrell Miller on their side of the street as opposed to somewhere else generating money for someone else. Because in all likelihood, if you don't snatch him up, somebody else will. And he will then become an asset to your competitors. So before you let that happen, you let him back into your good graces. And I reiterate, this is not moral ambiguity. This is simply me trying to wrap my mind around why Eddie Hearn would give this guy a second chance. What would be the hierarchy of thought? What would be the thought process? What's the rhyme and the reason? And when I look at the situation, that's what I see. That in spite of his sketchy past, he's better to Matchroom on their own side of the street as opposed to generating money and interest for someone else. That would have to be the school of thought. That would have to be the rhyme and the reason if Eddie Hearn so decides to give Jarrell Miller a second chance. That's the only way I can explain it.
I mean, really, why the fuck else would he do it?